Welcome to the Boat Babe podcast with your favorite boat babe here, Mary Allison. Here we talk boats, DIY projects, and manifestation tips to living your best vacay life on the water. If anything's going to happen, y'all know it. It's going to happen out there. So let's go explore together. Welcome back to another episode of the Boat Babe podcast. I am in the middle of the biggest storm again, leaving Barber. And, yeah, let me just tell you about this day. If you love boats as much as I do, if you love boat projects and you love stories of boaters like me being crazy as you know what, trying to get a project finished, then you should be in the car right now. I hate that I'm recording in the car, but it's too scary to be on the boat again, so here I am. Okay, just got finished rocking out to Humans Being by Van Halen, one of my favorite guitar solos ever. I couldn't even start recording because I had to get through the guitar solo. It's just mind-blowing and gorgeous. But, got lightning everywhere. The boat should be fine. The storm just kind of popped up. Everybody was saying it was going to go south, but it's not. And you know what I realized? Probably owning a boatyard like Barber in the middle of where there's storms constantly popping up is probably the most profitable business to have, because I still can't get these things done because of the storms. And I assume that every other boat in the boatyard feels the exact same way. Like, the lay days just add up, because it's like, what are you supposed to do? You can't just put your boat back in and be like, oh, okay, you know what? I can't do this because of the weather. Well, no, it's like you've got to finish. So today was a gorgeous day. Absolutely nothing on the radar. Everything was super far east of us, and where we live on the Gulf, most likely kind of like the majority of the country in the States, everything comes west to east, all the storms. And so it's opposite than the Caribbean. And so we were like, okay, this is going to be the perfect day. We mapped out the boot stripes, both of them, at the bottom and the top, which I don't know if the stripe around the cockpit's actually called a boot stripe, but we're just going to say it is. And so we got the boot stripes laid out, and they just ended up perfect. I mean, the way the boot stripes are on an Endeavor 43 from the 80s, they actually really make the boat look really great, but at the same time it ages the boat a whole lot. Like, the boot stripes are huge. There's the two at the bottom and then one in the middle and then two at the top, and it was just too much. And I think that's the original stripage, if that's a word, for Endeavors. And so I decided to do a boot stripe. Okay, first of all, this is the second boot stripe I've done in 2 months because I decided to redo it. So if you're like, aren't you being redundant? You've already done the boot stripe. Yes, because clearly I need to learn how to do it twice. So today, Seth, Cody, and I were at Barber from super early this morning, and we sanded the boot stripe. You take, what we did was, I'm not even going to go into the taping process of boot stripes, but maybe that'll be like a YouTube episode. But we sanded with 400 and then a Scotch-Brite pad and prepped for the boot stripe, and then decided, we just plasticked so much. It was just one of those days where you throw your neck out because all you're doing is laying plastic, like looking down and taping and plastic and taping and plastic. And you're like, is this ever going to end? And then all of a sudden, this storm cell decides to pop up. And I was like, this is insane. Like, there's no way I'm going to stop. There's no way we can backtrack. We've got to just keep going. We have to just push through. So the boot stripe color that I have on Rhiannon is, God, I don't actually know. I've told you before. Remember, I chose the royal blue boot stripe? Well, I changed my mind. I found a metallic royal blue. That's not the name, but it is metallic. And so I have two gorgeous stripes at the bottom of the hull and two at the top they're matching. And it is like mirror finish sparkle blue. And I can't figure out what it reminds me of. I swear. I'm like, no, it doesn't remind me of a bass boat. It doesn't remind me of a car. But like the blue reminds me of some. I can't think of it. I can't think of it. Somebody's going to come to me one day and go, oh my gosh, that blue looks like blank. And I'm going to go, that's it. That's what it's from. But I can't put my finger on it yet. But yeah, so it started sprinkling. We had already started spraying and it started sprinkling. We're like, where does this even come from? Where did this cell come from? It's not showing up anywhere. But the way that, the boot stripe on most boats goes under, it curves underneath. And so there was no rain on it. It was totally fine. And you probably could argue this to death and say, what the heck, you wasted your time. It's going to be horrible. But I'm really excited to show you if it's horrible or not, because it might be. But I think it's going to be fine because the metallic was the base. And this is just me attempting to copy the knowledge that I just gained by doing this project with Cody, who's a professional painter. So the base color flashed so fast, meaning it's totally dry. You can touch it within, I don't know, like 15 minutes. I mean, it was so fast. But the clear coat was the thing that we, had to worry about. But we added I can't remember what it's called. Basically, it makes it flash really fast. And so we sprayed it as quick as possible, and it started sprinkling. And we were like, we're going to do this. And somehow the heavens opened up, and it all stopped. The rain stopped. We actually could dry off the base color, and it was fine. I was like, this is going to be okay. So we laid the clear. We were actually able to take all the plastic off, all the tape off, and like have the boat be able to be rained on right before it started raining. And the thing is, if the top layer of the clear isn't happy, then we can just buff it, wet sand it and buff it and bring it back to like being super clean and shiny. It'll be fine. So that's just a little update right now that I had to share with you. I'm going to cut right now because I haven't eaten all day and I have nachos ready for me in the oven. But this episode actually is supposed to be about using your intuition when buying a boat or living on a boat. And I really want to dive into that because, and I know probably right now, if you're like super male brained like me and you're like, what does that even mean? And who cares? Just hang on. Or grab your wife because they're going to be like, oh, I want to know what this is all about. But yes, I am a psychic. And the fun part about, and please, come on, don't just let all the judgment weird stuff go because it's such a cool gift. And I absolutely love using my intuitive gifts on a boat. But yeah, I just want to talk about using your intuition when buying a boat, using your intuition when living on a boat, because it's like your boat can tell you things that is about to go wrong before it goes wrong. Or your boat can, if you can stop and just breathe for a second and sense what's going on downstairs, you'll be able to diagnose really crazy issues on your boat or something that's about to go wrong way before it even happens. And so stay tuned. I'm going to go eat my nachos and then I'll hop back in. Okay? I'll be right back. Okay, you guys. I'm back and I'm dry. And this is actually after the storm. After I could go to the boat and check on it after, oh my gosh, can you believe it? Prepping the entire day in the most gorgeous weather with nothing on the radar. No pop-up storms at all to be seen anywhere. And let me just tell you, like, I am emotionally exhausted, absolutely drained. And I kind of feel pretty defeated right now. I'm not going to lie. I'm so bummed. Okay, I have to say I'm 50% bummed because somehow by the grace of God, the boot stripe along the bottom of the boat is fine. Like the rain somehow didn't really touch it. But yeah, freaking downpour. I mean, yes, we could have stopped the 12 hours of work and say, hey, let's just take all this apart and we'll do it tomorrow. But instead we were like, no, like we're like, it's go time. We're going. And this is what you get. But you know what? Like I've said, it is almost impossible to do I mean, I can't imagine like in South Florida trying to get anything done with the rain pop-ups every day. But I know the regulations are really strict there. So probably most likely my boat would have to be like in a shed or totally tinted with no mast and everything for a new paint job. But, here in Alabama, it's peaceful. It's heaven. We really don't have all those regulations. It's convenient, for as long as it's going to last. I understand why regulations are in place. I understand that we're painting like toxic fumes in the air and all that good stuff. So sorry. Yes, I am a tree hugger, but at the same time, like my boat's in the middle of nowhere. And so I feel like there's a line. But anyway, so the top boot stripe is not happy. It's like the clear, like all craft. I'm not sure if it was all craft 2000. Yeah, it must be all craft 2000 clear. It's not all craft SE. SE is the metallic colors. That's the base color. So what we did was we sprayed the base color, that gorgeous metallic blue, and then the clear coat over it and did 2 coats of clear. And the clear, we put the I can't even think of the word right now, but what speeds up the process to help it flash faster. We put that in there and it was like having an argument with the rain. I mean, up there, it was just like this fight. I just picture like miniature volcanoes, like spitting at the rain. And that's what it dried to look like. So here I go. I've already dried everything off and retaped with fine line tape. I've already started sanding on my gorgeous, what would be gorgeous boot stripe with 320 by hand, which I don't want to do it by hand anymore. I think I'm gonna do it with my sander. But now we have more rain. So like what? Really? I'm almost done. When this boot stripe is going to be put back on, I'll be able to put back on my enclosure, the frame, the enclosure, my curtains, and then my solar panels. And then I can put the cover back on my entire boat, which is basically just like a giant tent. Nothing special at all, but at least it just keeps any of the rain off my cockpit, keeps the sun off the deck a little bit. And then I'll hop down on the scaffolding and probably I usually start with 180 grit just on my teak rub rails just to get them pretty. And I don't know if I'm going to varnish them. I actually should. It's a really easy area to varnish. And I feel like if I just got it over with, the upkeep would probably be pretty simple. So I'll probably do that. And then my steering's still not finished, guys. Like what why? When I don't do things myself, I feel like I have to wait forever. Then when I do things myself, I feel like I'm competing with the weather. Is this like, there's just like not a win. Where's the win-win situation when I need a freaking win? But anyway, this is part 2 of today's episode. And I have tried my hardest to get this out to y'all. I am so sorry. I want to be consistent. And I hate when I am so drained that all I can do is my head hits the pillow and I'm done for the day. Boat work definitely takes it out of you physically, but it also, it's like you have to use a side of your brain. You've got to plan for the day. Like what I do is get stuff out at the beginning of the day. Even if I can't get that project finished, I'll at least kind of have it out and placed out, like the caulk, my gloves, the caulk gun, just all this stuff, because half the time you're like, well, shit, where the frick did this go? Like, I just had it. And I just assume everything ends up in my bilge. I just assume all the flashlights end up there. My screwdrivers end up there. I don't have a clue where any of my long zip ties are. Those have all disappeared. I just assume there's a bilge monster who takes all my stuff and just puts it in the bilge. It's somewhere under my tanks that I'm never, ever going to find again. Batteries, they must be in the bilge somewhere. But anyway, so this episode is about your intuition on a boat. And I know you're probably thinking, what the heck is this girl talking about? What is intuition anyway? But just to start, hear me out, because it's actually pretty cool. And using your intuition, using that gut feeling when you're buying a boat, maintaining a boat, or living on a boat it just makes your life so much easier. It takes your brain and your ego out of the buying process, the maintaining process, and the living process. And what I do and what I've learned and what I've seen others do, you just start to feel your boat. You get that relationship with your boat where, I know this sounds crazy. Maybe you think boats are inanimate objects, but I don't. So my boat has a soul, y'all. She is my girl. She communicates with me. And it's because I listen to her, and this is what I teach people all the time. And I tell people, like, if you treat your boat well, your boat's going to treat you well. If you treat your boat damn good, your boat's going to treat you damn good. And so, but just starting out, let's talk about the buying process. And I know a lot of people are like, I don't want to talk about the buying process because I've already bought my boat. But let's just get through this, okay? Because you can use this in every area of your life. But when you start out buying a boat or you're looking at a boat, a lot of times you're like all excited and, oh my God, I'm going to buy this new thing and I got this new paycheck and I got my bonus and my wife is giving me the go ahead. Like, it's just going to be all great. We're just going to sail off into the sunset and blah, blah, blah. A lot of times it does not end up that way. Like, it just depends on where you live. It depends on your price point. It depends on what boat you're looking for. There's a lot of factors that go into what kind of boating experience you're looking for, what your wife is looking for, what your family wants, what your, paycheck can pay for. And the first thing that I wanted to just point out is, let's just say you're looking at a boat. This can be anywhere from a pontoon boat, your gorgeous Jupiter, center console. This could be, your awesome, 30-foot Catalina to your, I don't know, Hausberg Rassy that you've had your eye on forever. You can even have it go up to 120-foot, West Ship or a Westport. Is your broker shady? Are they just a shady person? Do you get the feeling that they're just kind of like I'm not saying this in a negative way, but I am. Like a negative, not negative, older, pirate-looking man who probably lives alone in his RV? Or is your broker somebody who has deep down, like, generational experience living, working, and breathing boats? So, and also, is the boat that you found in a really shady marina? And that can go either way. So our boat was in I would say a shady marina, like when I bought it, but it was temporary. And I understood the backstory. It was in Green Cove Springs, which, if you're not sure of the history of Green Cove Springs, Florida, the marina that we were in was an old World War II ship. I don't know if it was a ship building base or just a ship base for World War II ships. So the draft was 25 foot of mud and 5 feet of water. Like, terrifying. And the docks were just huge concrete docks, really high in the air. So it looked super shady. It was shady. It was cheap. It was in a weird area. Parts of Florida are just freaking strange. But once I knew the backstory of why my owners of the boat were there, why other owners were there, it made complete sense. Like, I understood why the boat was there. And there was like a lot of benefits to being right there. But so back up. Is your broker shady? And is your marina disgusting? So that's just going to give you, first off, like a really good overall idea of how the boat's being maintained, if the owners are picking a shady broker to sell you the boat, they're probably shady. If the boat's marina is just nasty and not kept up, why would they keep their boat up? And that's just how I see it. Prove me wrong. I don't care. Like, it's just what I've seen. And so, for example, like Melanie Sunshine Neal is my broker. I will use her for everything because she grew up on boats. She's crossed the Gulf Stream like 50 times. She's been through so many hurricanes. She's gone through really dangerous situations and storms. She knows every boat out there. She knows the engine hours on boats. She knows the core makeup of every boat that, out there. Like you could literally just spit out a boat and she'll be like, oh, I know that one. I've sold it. Don't buy it. Or, oh, I know this one. I know the owners. Don't worry. No. Or she'll say like mine. She was like, oh my gosh, I love your boat. I want your boat. I want your boat to raise my daughter on, but I'm not financially in a position right now to buy it. P.S. The owners are freaking amazing. This, they did this. They worked for this person. This is what they're doing. This is what they've done for years. And this is their future plans. So, of course, it was a lot easier to gain a relationship with the whole buying situation with the broker included, where the boat was, what the owners were like, because I had all the backstory and there was nothing to be like hidden. Nothing was being hidden from me. And so always just look at those two things, which seems so tangible, but so many people overlook it. They get excited about the boat and they forget to look at the surroundings around the boat to see if the boat's even been properly taken care of for the last, 5-10 years. Another thing is like, is the price too good to be true? I went recently I drove to Titusville to look at a boat with my salty boat neighbor chick girl who I just adore. And the price was too good to be true. And we got there and we realized the boat was completely fallen apart. I'm not surprised it didn't fall through the stands on the hard. Like, it hadn't been maintained. I can't even believe, like 30 years. I think it had been lived on, but it hadn't been maintained. The owner had a lot of love and a lot of heart into the boat, but the price was too good to be true, to the point where there was no way we would actually give him $1 for the boat. Okay, so let's say that you actually find a boat. Let's say you're like, okay, let's just say you found this awesome Catalina. You've done your research. You've gone on the Facebook forums. You've seen all the questions about it. Like, you know what to ask. You like your broker. You feel confident. And you're going through the tour of the boat and you're all excited, like your heart's pounding. You're just like, oh my gosh, I feel like this is opening up the dream life that I've always wanted. And everything seems to line up. That is the danger zone, okay? You've got people talking to you. You've got a lot of fluff. You've got a lot of dreams. You can see yourself sailing away and it's just amazing. Or let's say it's a center console. You see yourself like with your 6-pack of beers and you've got your new fishing rods. That is where you're going to get trapped the most. That is where you're the most manipulatable, if that's a word. That is where somebody can sell you the dream. And so this is where I've always used my intuition, and this is where I always suggest, let's say, give the broker, the owners, whoever's touring the boat with you, give them 20 minutes. Set your alarm, say, great. Oh, hey, can I take some time to go through the boat myself? And of course they're going to say yes. I mean, if they say no, then just get in your car and leave. But what I've always done, and what I always suggest, go through the boat alone. Don't, even if it means, leaving your kids in the car. If you have a spouse who might not really be interested, maybe leave he or her, he or she in the car. Be alone on the boat and just stand there. Because you'll start to get a feel for how it's been taken care of. Whether that's through the smell of the boat, or maybe if you hear water dripping. But it's more than that. Boats hold energy. They hold energy like homes. When you walk into a room and you can tell instantly somebody's been fighting in here and you're like, why do I get a vibe that somebody's just had this huge blowout argument when they're not in there anymore? It's the same thing with boats. If you walk onto that boat and you have this amazing feel, you have this amazing energy, you could sense the family that was on that boat eating dinner there and just enjoying life. That's an awesome plus. But if you're in there and you're like, something just feels like this musty old man with his dog and he could have died here, big red flag. Like, probably not the boat for you. And so take the time to go through the boat alone and then use your senses. Like, go through the bilge. What do you smell? Do you smell oil? Do you smell coolant leaking? Those things aren't necessarily like a deal's done, no brainer, definitely not buying this boat thing. You know, for example, I had my engines, I have my engines maintained by a guy here in town, and he put on a cracked oil filter on my generator. And of course, start up the generator and I'm just on my way. I trust the guy. I think everything's great. I paid him $25,000 or $2,500 for both my engines. You know, I spent a lot of money on this, like, to maintain things. And all of a sudden, I'm like, why is my bilge just, it smells like oil. It smells horrible, So there's that, middle ground of like, is this just an accident or is this actually how the boat's been maintained the whole time? I go with a dry bilge all the time. If I have water in my bilge, it's a red flag. If I have oil in my bilge, it's a red flag. If you go on a boat, you can tell if it's a red flag or if it's just normal. So, also, is there water in the bilge? You guys, stop overlooking the damn water in the freaking bilge, okay? Like, that's a problem if there's water in the bilge. It means something is not flowing properly. And so, also this is just like when you buy a car. Has the engine been started right before you got there? It's annoying, but it's something to be like, really? I mean, you've got to get an idea of what it feels like and sounds like and smells like when you're starting an engine from at least it being cold for a couple days. Like, I feel like it really, really I feel like it like hinders and puts like a bad taste in my mouth when I go up and I'm like, oh, the engine was just started. I can't get to know the boat. Like, you can't get to know the engine when you don't know what they've done in the last 15 minutes before you got there to start it, So, okay, things to look for. Water damage is huge. Just while you're down there by yourself, observe the way the walls are. Observe the floor. Is there discoloration in the color of the wood? Are there any soft spots on the deck? Are there soft spots downstairs? How shallow are the bilges? Are your bilges shallow enough to where if you're listing, like heeling over to one side, and you have water in your bilge, are you going to have water in your floor instead of it staying in your bilge? Just like overall cleanliness or filth of the boat. A lot of times we don't recognize these things when we're going through a boat with a broker or an owner or our best friend or our spouse, because we want to overlook these things. We don't, for me, I'm the type of person, I want to go into a situation looking at it with the glass half full. I want to go in and be like, oh my God, look at how wonderful this has been maintained. And I'll go through something for 20 minutes saying these things until I maybe pick up the phone and call a friend and start asking questions. Or when I realize like something doesn't feel right in this, in the hallway, like something just feels really damp. It takes time for us to kind of come off of our little high horse of excitement to really just feel what the boat is trying to tell us. And so also remember, you get what you pay for. And this is really hard because it is definitely an opinion. I see people spending a whole lot more for boats than I would for what they're getting. But so it's pretty general in a sense. You really do get what you pay for. And also, is the owner willing to negotiate? If they're not willing to negotiate, it's not a freaking game anymore. It's boring. So I'm like, well, if you're not going to negotiate, like I'll just find somebody with a boat similar and probably even less, like worth less than this, and maybe even like not as nice, because I want to fucking play. Like, really? And so if you have somebody who's just like, nope, this is strict on the price, like, okay, why are you strict on the price? Like, are you that desperate to sell it? Like, what are your I start to ask those questions. Like, what are your personal problems? Where did you cut corners where you need to sell this boat so desperately? So always go with the boat owner who's negotiable, because that means they care about the boat, they care about what they're getting, and they also care about what you're receiving. You know, my boat was listed, and I could be wrong because it was a while ago. I'm pretty sure it was listed for 89,000, 80. That was about right. I paid $67,000. The like That's a lot of a price difference for a boat. And they saw how much I cared. They saw that I took the time to go through the boat for a really long time alone. They saw that I made phone calls. They heard my story. They heard how we had lost everything in Hurricane Irma. They heard how I've been a captain for over a decade. They knew that the boat that they loved so much and had really wonderful stories on was going to be continued by me. And they were willing to negotiate with me because they knew that if there was an ounce of energy of them to want to put back into their sailboat later, if I ever would have sold it, they would have bought it back. And so they came off the price a ton. And then when I moved on to the boat, there weren't any huge hiccups. They were available for me to call them, but I knew personally I didn't feel comfortable calling them to ask questions. I think it's rude. If you have that relationship with your old owner where you can call them constantly, it's great, kind of, but it's kind of it's your own story. It's your own exploration. It's your own journey. Yes, of course, I had questions about certain things that I literally couldn't figure out without them. Like if something was still in their name or whatever. But I, for the most part, tried to figure it out by asking the Endeavor forum or going online and looking it up, because I knew their journey had ended and mine had begun. And I didn't feel like enmeshing the two. So yes, you get what you pay for. Just remember that. And, usually if your budget is super duper duper low with boats, and this is just obvious, it's probably a no-brainer, you're going to be putting a lot more money into the boat than you planned, and it might be over a long period of time, which that makes me feel more comfortable. I think it makes a lot of people feel more comfortable, but you've got to start with a baseline of a good cared for boat first. Okay, we're going to jump to using your intuition when you're maintaining maintaining a boat / living on a boat. And this is where I've always been able to use my intuitive gifts. I am a boat psychic. I'm a psychic. I give readings. I'm a psychic medium. I do medium readings for people. I always have for years and years. And it's something that was interesting when this popped up for a couple buying a boat. The wife had called me and she said, hey, we are on, I can't remember what it was. I think it was some custom built boat around 35, 40 years old, but they are liveaboards, and the boat, their Whitby, had gotten destroyed in Hurricane Irma. And so they were desperately trying to find a new home. And what comes with desperation? The pink cloud of, oh my God, everything's fine. This looks great. Okay, let's move on. And then it's like, oh shoot, we didn't even realize that X, Y, and Z is wrong on this, when we probably could have figured it out if we would have just slowed down in the buying process. So they had called me when they were on the boat and they said, can you do a reading for me of this boat? And I was like, absolutely. Let's see what comes up. And it was pretty fascinating because I was probably 2,000 miles away from them. And I was able to use my intuitive gifts to help them find out what was wrong with that boat. And I was able to call out the fact that there was major issues underneath the floor that they had not explored, meaning major age. It was almost as if it was going to have a lot of random electrical or pipe plumbing issues that were just because it wasn't being maintained and because of its age. Another thing that came up was there were issues with the air conditioning units, or they didn't have air conditioning units, and that was something that they had overlooked. I can't remember which one it was. And then also the third thing that came up was the water tanks that came up for me during the reading was that the water tanks were original and the boat was almost 40 years old. I mean, that's insane. Like, you've got to have new tanks. The water tanks and the diesel tanks and the black water tanks. So gray water, black water, and fuel tanks were all original. And she was able to leave the boat, go over the paperwork one more time and just over the facts and go, oh my God, she's right. Like, the things that I was able to point out were the things that they had overlooked on the data sheet, and that would have been huge red flags for them. And they would have never even probably considered the boat if they had known. So it was really fun being able to help them out. They didn't buy that boat. They bought another one that worked out for them. But getting to know your boat when you're living on it. So it's kind of the same thing as the buying process. Just taking the time to, listen, to hear any water leaks, to look into the bilge, to see what you find, and to use your sense of smell just to smell what the heck is leaking. What's wrong here? The thing though about it takes a while. If you're just maintaining a boat, you don't really get the opportunity, like a liveaboard, to really, really get to know your boat like on a quicker scale. But it can happen over just a longer period of time. But just starting out, like just feeling your boat if it's listing one way or not. So for example, like my boat lists a little bit to starboard because my batteries, all four of my huge deep cell batteries are on the starboard side. And all my air conditioning units are on that side. And whenever I store stuff, it goes on that side. All my tools are on that side. So sometimes whenever I leave the dock or whenever I look at the boat from the dock, I always see there's that slight list and it drives me insane. But I know what it's from and I know it's not a problem. One day I showed up at the boat and there was a odd list to starboard. And it was because my drain plug or my drain in my deck had gotten clogged with caulk. I was just being lazy and throwing the caulk on the deck, and then it rained and it went all down, into my drain and clogged it. And I had probably 100 gallons of water just sitting on the top of my deck. And so, just getting to know little things like that, the way that your doors open and close. Right now my boat's on the hard and all my doors open. They stay open one way and they won't close the other way. And it's because I was tilted back a little too far for a long time. And so it was just freaking annoying, but I knew personally the doors need to close. They close like this, they sound like this, and they latch like this because I live on the boat I'm on it all the time. Okay, so also this seems obvious, but clearly it's not because I see this issue all the time. Noticing if your boat is lower in the stern, and this could go for any boat, noticing if it's lower in the stern or in the bow. I was driving our Sea Hunt recently, going to grab a bite to eat, and I just kept passing this cabin cruiser. I'm not exactly sure what it was. And I'm like, I think that boat is sinking. And then I'm like, go back by it again. I'm like, no, I think it's sinking. And it's just because I notice things, and it turned as often as I go in and out of Bear Point, I just glance at the boats. I see the boats. I wave to the people on their boats. And all of a sudden I'm like, that boat has got to be, it's going bow down. And it was. And finally somebody, I guess, that lived there was there during the office hours and was able to find the owners and tell them, hey, your boat's sinking, going bow first. And it was only like a foot or 18 inches. But I mean, clearly there was water filling in the bilge from something. So yeah, giveaway issue number 1 to look for is water in the bilge. And then feeling a sense of just something is off. Like, let's say you turn on your air conditioning and you're running it, consistently. And then all of a sudden you come downstairs one day and you're like, I don't know why. Something just feels off. Something feels off and it's about the air conditioning. Like, those are the senses that I'm talking about. It doesn't have to be this magical psychic sense that you're trying to look for. It's just noticing a slight temperature change, a slight hum difference in your air conditioning. And the same thing, starting your engine. Every engine has that rumble sound when it starts, and the noises of, the water, flowing through your engine and out the stern. And, that one time you start it and you're like, oh, something just isn't right. It's take the time to go explore it. Take that, even though it might mean something's broken, don't ignore it, because finding out earlier what's going on with your boat than later can save you so much money in the long run. So if you struggle with boat issues and you have a hard time with your intuitive senses to sense what's going on with your boat, I suggest making a list of things to do on the daily, weekly, and monthly. So for example, like every day I check my bilge. I have a flashlight above my electrical panel and I look inside my bilge and I just see if there's water. Because sometimes I'm like, where the heck did this water come from? And a lot of times it's like we had a huge rainstorm. So at least I know that I've got to rebed a lot of bolts or screws. It could be from an air conditioning unit where the drain hose from the condensing pan like fell out of the sump box. Or it could be that the bilge pump stops working. I've got 2 bilge pumps on my boat, and for a long time, the forward one that gets the lower amount of water wasn't working. A good thing to do weekly, check your AC drains, maybe add a little bit of thieves or add a little bit of bleach, which if you have aluminum drains, I don't suggest. But check your intake and outtake lines and just make sure that the water's flowing through your air conditioning units properly, because that's a super easy, quick fix on a you like to DIY all the time scale. But just cleaning out your air conditioning hoses versus waiting till, oh my God, now they're super clogged with barnacles and sea life and grass and fish and everything else that freaking clogs all the lines. Just taking the time every week to just check on them will definitely help you awaken your intuitive gifts on your boat, but it'll also just maintain your boat better. Is your hot water heater leaking like mine was? I had missed that for so long because I didn't know to look. Do you have, if you run your boat often, are you having, check your oil levels in your engine and your coolant. You might not be in the habit of every time checking your oil. If you take your boat out every day, you might be in the habit of checking your oil maybe every week or every 2 weeks. But if you get in the habit of doing that, like on a Monday, every Monday you check your engine coolant, you check the oil, you're just going to prohibit like any major hiccups from occurring, especially when you're offshore, which can obviously be really dangerous. And like monthly, check your through holes. Like how are your, or can you pull your boat out every month? Do you have a small enough boat where you can pull it out? Take it out of the slip once a month. That's a big issue that I have. I don't run my boat enough. I love working on the boat. I love living on a boat. I love, I wish I could say I love laying out on the boat, but that's not the case. And my dad gets on me all the time. He's like, you don't run your boat enough. Like that's your problem. You get, and it's true. Turn on your bow thruster. Just bump it back and forth a couple times every couple weeks. Even if you can't leave the dock, start your engine. Make sure your starter battery's working. Make sure you're tied up well, but put your boat in gear. Put it in gear for a minute. Put it in, reverse for a minute. Make sure your steering is okay. Loosen up any of the muscles or any barnacles around your rudder post. Just taking the time to love on your boat will make your boating life so much more fun. And, this is the last suggestion that I have and something that I love and I do all the time. This is meditation to me, and I'll probably share this more. Just taking the time to wash your boat weekly and cleaning the interior of your boat weekly definitely helps awaken your intuitive gifts, where you'll, regain those senses, or you'll begin to at least sense issues before they occur. And, for me, taking the time to wash my boat is probably like, I want to say as equally relaxing as if I'm actually meditating. And that's only because it's kind of like instant gratification. You're like, oh my gosh, look how pretty it is. Look at what I own. This is so gorgeous. And a lot of people, they pay people to have their boats washed. I do it myself because I enjoy it. I love washing my boat in the rain. I feel like I'm, forming more of a relationship with my boat than just constantly working on it and maintaining it, or even just relaxing on it. So I hope that these tips and intuitive tricks help you in your boat buying process and your boat thriving process. I am your boat babe, Mary Allison. Go find me on Instagram and let me know how I am doing. I would love to hear your positive suggestions and feedback. I am at that boat babe, and also you can leave 5 stars if you would love that. That would make me so happy. And I love you so much, and I will see you next week. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye.